Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of ThinkTank Thursday with TrainerTainment. I'm Candy Kelly, and I am thrilled to be with you this week. Thank you for coming. Before we begin, I want to give some love to our Think Tank sponsors. We love some Simnox, Roller, Delta Strike, Betson, BMI Merchandise, Expert Hosiery, and Embed. We appreciate all that they do so that we can bring you new episodes each and every week and share insights from experts and operators across this wonderful industry. As you guys know, if you have been following, on Thursdays, TrainerTainment likes to spend a little bit of time away from all the doing there is to be done and spend some time thinking. And this week, we are spending that time with a great guest. We will be thinking with Dave Sexton. Dave Sexton is with Betson, and he wrote a guest blog for us about game room layout and how to maximize that and get the most out of it. And anybody who's on our email list should have already received that, so check that out. But this is the think tank that is going with that. So let's jump in and see how we can grow today, learning more about game room layout. Dave, welcome to Think Tank Thursday. We are so excited to have you here. For those out there who might not have had the pleasure of meeting you, take a second, introduce yourself and what your role is at Betson.
Sure. Thank you for having me. I appreciate you asking. My role at Betson is director of FEC Development. So that's kind of a crazy title, but every day what we do is we work with our customers, their architect, their engineers, before, during, and after construction of their new projects. And we do the layout for the game room. We provide an electrical overlay for the engineers to use for the game layout, and we try and put a lot of science behind what we do, and I've been doing it for quite a long time. I've been with Betson for 10 years. Prior to that, I was with Brady for 21 years, and then prior to that, I was with Rowe AMI jukeboxes at a factory.
Oh
yeah. And before that, my dad was a board repair guy. His company repaired boards for video games, some of the early video games. So we had him in my house when I was 15 years old. So I've been around it for quite a while. Got into drawing game rooms probably 20, 30 years ago. So that's when the first drawing was requested. I drew it in Excel for those of you who are interested. Yeah. So, but then as they got more sophisticated and, we started doing projects for Disney and for some pretty big name places, it was evident I had to learn AutoCAD and really get involved in the architectural drawings. So that's a little bit about me. Prior to that, I was in the 82nd Airborne Division as well. So I was a paratrooper in the Army prior to that.
Sounds like you were just destined to be with video games from the time you were.
For sure. The coin op business, for sure. My uncle was in the vending side and my dad was on the amusement side. So for sure.
Awesome. So you are the go-to person if I want to have a game room and lay it out. And I love that you use the word science, because I do think sometimes people look at them and they think, oh, it's so easy and just throw some games in there and make some money. But there are some essential considerations that people should think about when they're determining the size and the cost of their game room. And then we'll get into layout a little bit later. But what are those when you're looking at what size does my FEC support for an arcade? How much money should I invest in it? What are some of those questions that you ask people when they're considering those things?
Yeah, that's a great question, because there's a piece that we change and we put out every few years when we feel it needs to be adjusted. And I started at probably 50 square foot per game, back in when I drew my first one. We changed that probably a decade ago to 60 square foot per game. And now we're up to 70 square foot, which we did at last IAPA. My partner that works with me, we are lucky enough to be part of thousands of drawings for thousands of FECs. Whether Betson does the project or not, we seem to get eyes on a lot of them. So we kind of just keep a guide as to how many games can fit per square foot. And as we start struggling to fit some of these bigger games in, and these attraction pieces in, we adjust that. So it's 70 square foot per game.
That has grown since I really started tracking this about even 10 years ago. So
yeah, it has, and it continues to. We don't see that dropping now. That's for a full, all brand new redemption style arcade. There's barcades, there's all kinds of new kind of projects that come to our desk that you could obviously fit more games in a smaller space if you're doing all barcade style games. That's our starting point. So we get the drawings, whether it's a hand drawing, a PDF, or an AutoCAD. We recreate the game room if it's a hand drawing, or we use the AutoCAD to take out half walls, windows, or any doors or any non-usable space for a game. So an architect will tell us we have 3,000 square foot for the arcade allotted. Usually by the time we do what we call our usable space, we'll be down at least 500, maybe even sometimes 800 square foot when we take out spaces that we cannot use for games. So then we do the math, and we can figure out how many games can fit. Now, is that the right number that they should get? That's the big question, right?
yeah.
So, we use a number, an industry average number of per week revenue, and we would love to back into those numbers for folks when we can, because we know in a multi-purpose facility, 25% is pretty easy to attain from the arcade. So if we do the math backwards, now we know how many games you need. So we prefer to do it that way. We don't always have those numbers. We don't always, sometimes they don't know what their projected overall gross sales will be, but that's the right way to do it. We definitely don't want to oversell people. We're happy to back up trucks and add games when they're meeting utilization on each game. So we'd much prefer it go that way. And we do a lot of talking. So that 60 square or 70 square foot per game, we usually plus or minus 5 games with that number on most drawings. So, yeah.
Awesome. Well, that that covers like the size I should dedicate to a game room and kind of what I would be looking at for cost. But you can't just like throw some arcade games in the middle of the floor. So how do you create something, especially for a place that has not had a game room before and is now like something that it almost gives a welcoming vibe once you walk into that area or that arcade space that will draw people into it?
Yeah, and that's changed over the years, and it does change. And I'm sure we'll talk about trends later as well. But it does change over time. So the old time arcades, when you went to the mall, when malls were inside, you always saw the dance game in the food court mall game room. You always saw the dance game right in the door. Well, that created that excitement for people to come in. So that's what they were doing. Kids would stand around, watch kids dance. It was motion, movement, so it let people in. Now with games getting so big, and the redemption games, becoming more prevalent in the arcade, we try and create better sight lines for the entrance. So certainly we want some activity or some action, or maybe a new premium video game, but we tend to try and put low games or see-through games now towards the front.
Right.
So that we can create a welcoming environment that folks can see through the game room. And, usually there's a magic spot. Every client we've dealt with has their magic spot of where their entrance, most of their customers or guests start off. And there's things they want them to see. So we try and create those sight lines to those things they want to see, whether it's the redemption room or whether it's an attraction, or maybe a restaurant dining area, or just a waterfall wall feature they want them to see. So we try and create that sight line, and we can do that with glass games and with lower games. But we also tend to put some new pieces, like the new VR games. We try and get those up front. Yeah, because that definitely, you want them to see that. It's an attraction piece. They're usually very expensive, so you want them to see it. You don't want to hide that in the back.
So when you're looking at someone who's adding an arcade to their center, are you pro like putting it towards the front of the facility, in the back, in the middle? Like, where do you typically find yourself?
Yeah, that's a great question too, because we do, and I'll talk about it some more, but we when we get involved early, we can help folks with some real problems, right? So
Mm-hmm.
putting games, trampoline parks are a great example. They all had their game rooms behind the trampolines when they first opened. Games did horrible in trampoline stores. Now you look at what's happened with, Launch and all these other major trampoline parks that have multiple attractions and 100-game arcades. We try and get it towards the front. We want them to see they're very impulsive. Games are very impulsive. The word attraction means attraction because it attracted people to your building. So those don't necessarily have to be up front. They can be around the perimeter of the building, but games are very impulsive. We want them to see them. We want the kids, if it's a family style place, we want the kids to not be able to get in and out of there without seeing games, because you're giving the parents a license to get them out of there if you do that. And whatever percentage that is, you throw it at it, but you're going to lose some sales for sure.
I know that in the article that this think tank is going to accommodate, you talked a little bit about the rise of unattended virtual reality. And I know Betson's done a great job putting some of the best ones of those out in the market, like King Kong and those types of things. But you mentioned that you still can't just put them out there and forget about them, that they're on your floor, that they need some special attention.
Yeah.
Talk more about that.
For sure. I mean, coming out of the pandemic, we were all kind of unsure what VR was going to be, right? You're cleaning goggles, you're doing this, doing that, and we were all just floored at how they went. They just never stopped earning. And as a result, manufacturers of all the manufacturers have responded with some great VR products. So unattended VR products. When VR first came out, Hologate was probably one of the biggest hits, the first one that came out. I remember people were pre-ordering them at that IAPA. They were going nuts. I mean, and what happened was there are some facilities that it's not a product that they're going to support enough to make the kind of money it should make. So for that kind of footprint and an attendant, you've really got to put all in. I mean, I've evaluated a lot of game rooms after they've opened, tried to figure out why this Hologate or this attended VR is only doing $800-900 a week, while you go to other bigger FECs and they're doing $3,000-4,000 a week or more. And you try to evaluate it, and what we came to was it's about the employee. It's about having the employee that's going to explain what that experience is, and having them there. I mean, if it's dark and no attendant is there, how many people are just going to walk by it? Right? They're afraid of it. They don't know what it is. They don't know if they have to have 4 people. Can one person do it? They don't have a lot of knowledge. So we find that FECs that have really good employees at explaining other attractions, laser tag, high-speed go-karts, low-speed go-karts, those type of facilities tend to be able to do okay with the attended VRs. So the unattendeds came out, and at first it was just kind of motion things. You're swinging a sword or you're doing that. Now we've got gun games, we've got driving games, we've got experiential games, and all for all ages. And there's more coming that are going to be for even more ages and more demographics. So I think, to your point, you don't want to just stick them in there. I mean, if I don't have the staff to maintain an attended VR, I certainly have an area I can create with all those unattended VRs and sell that as almost an attraction. And I think guys are doing that. They're all trying to figure out a way that they can, offer that as a package. So instead of $7 per VR, maybe you give them a $35 package. You get to play all of them. So we try and keep them close to each other. There are some limitations technically as how close they can be, because they tend to interfere with each other. Some of them do. So,
interesting.
Yeah. So we try and keep them as close together as we can. And that's like 15 feet. It's not like they have to be completely across the game room, but it's really interesting. Like there's one that came out recently that's called T-Rex that is completely experiential and learning. It's learning about dinosaurs for kids. And the factory was saying, well, look, we should hit museums. We should hit, zoos. We should hit. And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, I'm saying, well, yeah, we should hit all of those. But that added to the shooting games, the driving games, the other ones, the Kongs, and all of those out there. That is just rounding out your VR experience and ability. So, SpongeBob does that, and there's just a lot of them out there. TriTech's got some great ones, so yeah, it's exciting to see that new category really coming to the market.
I know. I do feel like for those of us who've been in the industry for a while, there was like the talk of VR, it started to come, then it like backed itself out of the industry for a while because the technology just had not gotten there. And then COVID came, and then it was starting to ramp up again. Then COVID came, and we were like, that's probably going to be a back, they're probably going to backtrack
Yeah.
again. And then they just adapted, and the technology is there now for it to be a really nice experience with the virtual reality attractions that are out there now. So it will be interesting to watch it continue to grow and what becomes of that.
Yeah, we do a lot of even smaller places, and they're offering at least one, if not two, VR experiences. Maybe one for younger kids like SpongeBob, and one for older like Godzilla. So even smaller game rooms, 30 game rooms, they're actually making room for them. So in the budget and in the space. So
sounds like it's a must-have for upcoming game rooms, interestingly enough.
I believe that.
Which I'll ask you a little bit later. What are some of the other must-haves? I've heard some titles over the years or types of games ever. But the next thing I have is like, we've all been to that arcade where you can kind of tell they just kind of like thrown things in there and there's not a good flow. Like you've got long games next to short games. So the flow of a guest being in there and kind of like trying to maneuver or follow a kid around gets a little bit cumbersome. So what strategies do you implement for that organization of game rooms within the space to enhance like that customer experience of flow, how they want to go through the game room?
Yeah, I mean, to an extent, our designs start with trying to get the electric right, okay? Because they need that. They need to get permitted. So it's very linear in design, the way we design them. After that, they can be adjusted, for angles, for better sight lines, and we try and, make some signs, put some signs behind it. But, like games, there are games that we know feed off each other, okay? So there was a game called Crank It by Baytech, right? Same company that made Big Bass Wheel, right? So Big Bass Wheel, we all know, is one of the biggest hits that ever hit an arcade, right? Well, not a lot of people had success with Crank It, but in a lot of places that had the success, I noticed they were having the success when it was close to the Bass Wheel.
Oh.
So in other words, when there's a line on a Saturday at the Bass Wheels and some of the guys had 4 and 5 and they kept adding the 4th and 5th one, maybe adding a couple Crank It or Crank It Revolution 2-player next to it would have filled that need. So we try and put some science behind it. We also try and keep certainly age groups separated. I've walked into game rooms, I'm sure you have too, where you see a boxing game sitting right next to a kid's game. We know that's just a recipe for disaster. So we try and put some science behind it. We try and keep some videos as close together as possible. Merchandisers are always good in high traffic areas, because each window should be a retail window, targeting some demographic for your facility. So as we reach 20%, 15 to 20% of your game mix as merchandiser, and that's cranes, hard good merchandisers all included, you want to treat each window as a retail style window, and the good guys do that. When you've been to a good game room with a good crane setup, you see it. Each crane has somebody they're targeting with that crane, and that's the way to do it. So we try and put those in some high traffic areas. So impulsive people that maybe don't want to play games will see a prize they want and play that. So we try and put those there. Photo booths, for instance, we try and put those near, if it's an adult style place, we probably try and get it near the bar, because we see a lot of folks like to do selfies in a photo booth now, right? So so we'll try and get them near the bar. If it's a family style place, we try and get them near the party rooms, because oddly enough, coming out of the party rooms after the party's over, let's everybody go get a picture. So we try and put some science behind it. Skill wall, we call it a skill wall, carnival wall, or there's all different names for it. So we try and keep those together. Those
are like down the clowns and skee balls.
Exactly. When you walk in a game room, you see one of those sticking out in the middle of the room. It's to your point. It's like, okay, somebody either moved it, because I don't think anybody would design it that way. When those games are together, it's typically families that are going to play those type of games, or groups that are going to play those type of games. So having those all together just creates that atmosphere that is the arcade, right?
They're
So
cheering each other on. You
yeah,
hear that. It gets a
it's
vibe going.
it's a harken back to what arcades always were, right? So there's a lot of new long games. They're long games. They're all about 10 foot, 8 to 10 foot long. So we have to have wall space, so we talk, again, getting in early is important for us, because a lot of arcades, the architect will send us around game room, no walls, and we're like, whoa, how you gonna do this?
We're like,
we got to
arcade games are
through,
a lot of straight lines. We can't have a circular room.
Yeah, I mean, we work with every design. We try to work with it, but if we get involved early, we'll be able to give them some advice on that. But so we definitely try and create a skill wall or a carnival wall where we can. And some people split the sports away from that. So sports games will split away from that, and I would, if we have the ability to do that. And then VR, yeah, it's a great activity game to have up front, but we believe the most people are trending towards having their redemption up front or on the way in, on the way out, so people can see it. So we'd like a VR game to be somewhere within eyeshot of an employee. So that's always a good thing.
That makes sense.
Even though they're unattended, it's great to see if somebody needs help getting the headset on, or it's maybe a headset's being abused, you have somebody that can see that. So we tend to try and put them near employee points.
That definitely makes sense. And we take for granted that we know what to do with them. And I'm sure there's still guests who go into arcades who are unsure how to start it or put it on and those things. So an employee being able to see that could definitely jump in and just enhance the guest experience.
For sure.
You touched on this with your last answer where you were talking about 20% merchandisers. So what is that balance of games? If I'm doing an all-in arcade, because I do know there's some only self-merchandising arcades in existence, and depending on size and what your demographic is. But if I'm doing an all-encompassing arcade, what is that mix 20% here that you're looking for? And then for those who may not know, what are the different categories of games that you're structuring?
Yeah, so I'll tell you a quick story. When I first started doing arcade layouts, there were so many different categories in this industry. Card systems had just come out, and guys were setting up their card systems with every category for every type of game there was. So years ago, I said, look, we got to get this down. We've got to get this to something we can measure. So I brought it back to 3 categories, right? So it's merchandiser, and that's anything that you get a direct product out of. So whether it's a photo booth, a prize crane, or anything that you get a direct product out of, that's called a merchandiser.
See, I'm not sure I would have put photo, even being in this industry, I'm not sure until you just said that I would have put photo booths in that category. So I learned something today.
If there's a cost to the product, we just want it to be called a merchandiser. And then the video category, that'll include some surprising things to you as well. So air hockey and things like that aren't typically included in video, but they do not pay out tickets. So if they don't pay out points, tickets. I was the ticketless guy for a decade. Now all of a sudden I slip and say tickets. No, so ticket, points on the card. Anything that gives points on a card, that's a redemption game. So if it doesn't give any kind of points back to the card for your gameplay, if it's just for high score, then that's what we term a video. And then the rest obviously is merchandiser. Now you can go to a million different subcategories, and we do look at those, but a balanced game room changes, and it has changed even in the last 5 years. It changes. So number one question we get from a customer is, hey, I'm an adult place, I want all adult games. Hey, I'm a kids place, I want all kids games. And I have to tell them, look, the number one game at Dave & Buster's is the number one game at Chuck E. Cheese. Same game. It's all about what you're offering and what prizes they can get that can age group it. Now, certainly we would skew a little bit heavier video for an all-adult place, maybe a little less redemption, but that category really doesn't, these numbers that I'm going to give you are pretty spot on, and we get to see, like I say, hundreds and hundreds of them. So right now, merchandiser, as I said, is 15 to 20%. Now, it'll get high as 20% if you're including some of the ticket cranes in there, which some guys do, which
Oh,
technically they're redemption, right?
yeah.
So it'll reach between 15 and 20. Video is a category that has moved and continues to move. So if you asked me 5 years ago, most people were 20% if it was a family style place, maybe 25 if they were trying to reach some older. Now we're clearly 25 to 30% video because of VR and premium videos that have come
That's what I
out.
was fixing to ask. VR, based off the definitions you just gave me, VR fits into that video category. And so the growth of VR enhances that
Exactly.
category.
Some VR. There's some VRs that are going to be redemption. So, stay tuned. Yeah. So, there's going to be that category is just going to keep growing, and it doesn't have to be all video or whatever. VR can be anything. So, but those are the basic three categories we got to. You have stop the light games, you have photo booths, as you mentioned, you have sports games, you have, ball games, you have all these different categories that we could break your report up into. And we do when we consider what games to recommend to you. So we do consider all of those categories, and we don't want to be too heavy on stop the light. We don't want to be too heavy on drop the ball, so we try and look at all those categories and make sure we're keeping you whole that way as well. But those three numbers are probably the most we see out there in a broad sense, and obviously if this was a barcade or somebody that was opening a completely adult place, we've done some that they have no redemption, so that number can change based on the style place.
Which is why it was just a generic, these are similar to the numbers that I was aware of, but I wasn't sure if our audience would be. So I'm sure that there are some games, you've mentioned Big Bass Wheel, that you're like, there are some things that I'm going to probably suggest that all all game rooms have. What are those on your list? What are your top five that you like?
Well,
one has?
I almost hate to throw out names of them because if I forget somebody will say something. But
you can say types of games if you want.
Yeah, a good mix of VR, a good mix, and there are so many out there. So I would urge people to take a look at what VR they have. Like if you have a Rabbids already, maybe you want something that skews a little older, to add to it. If you have, something like Kong or even Godzilla's coming out is starting to hit the street now. Maybe you want to look at something like either a Rabbids or something more generic, like some of the TrainerTainment ones that are just really good rides, cool rides. Or if you don't think you have enough for the little ones, go with the SpongeBob, or the new T-Rex for that matter. So I would urge people to look at those. They're all earning very well. The new moving seat drivers all seem to be doing well as also. So whether you're talking about Asphalt, whether you're talking about Fast and Furious, whether you're talking about all of the new the Need for Speeds, so whether you're talking about all those, that has blown the video market up because driving games used to do $300 a week no matter who you were. No matter who you were, that was it. And that was a good number. So we're seeing these do numbers like redemption, frankly. So that's fantastic, and that's why you're seeing that category grow as well, because there's just a lot of good video product out there, a lot of inventive stuff. Boxers have made a comeback. I know guys were against them, but they're making such crazy money. Ticket cranes, you just can't go wrong with. You can't. Ticket crane. I'll tell you a story. I won't mention who the customer was, but I told him that we had to put it in for a refresh. We call refreshes when we're updating locations. And I said, you got to put this big ring game in there. And they had a real problem because they didn't want their redemption people dealing with the rings coming to the desk and them having to put it on put the points on the card. And they just really said, logistically, we can't do it. We think there's going to be a lot of theft. I said, okay, well, we won't do it for your other stores, but let's, we'll keep this one for a while and we'll take it back if we need to. It ended up being the number one game in the entire fleet of this very big FEC company. It ended up consistently being the number one game.
I'll call someone to rethink their decision.
They did rethink it. Now you'll see 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 ticket type cranes in those facilities. So I think you can't go wrong with that. The pushers are great. The ones that are themed towards Marvel, especially Marvel and DC, that's hot. Why not take advantage of it? And then there's just a lot of new long games. We're seeing guys drop from, Used to be whether if they had 6 skee balls, they were dropping to 4. If they had 4, they might drop to 2. Now we're seeing big places drop to 2 skee balls because there are so many new long games out that fit that same. So that's cool. That's cool to see. It's a lot of variety.
All right. Give us a little bit of insights on what trends do you think are coming down the pipeline for us to keep our eyes on?
Well, I mean, trends as far as like the FECs themselves, because with what I'm involved
whatever you want to share with us.
Yeah, these plans that come across my desk are just so exciting, because they're from every different part out of our industry. And there's, we knew the bowling revolution came, and we all did this, and now movie theaters are starting to do it, and some of them already did a long time ago, but there's just so many new segments. I did a pickleball place the other day. I drew a cruise ship from Europe the other day, so it's just so many new areas coming to the industry. And it's really funny how you hear about these things like, axe throwing came out and everybody was, oh, that'll never work. But trampolines came out, that'll never work. I've never been that kind of guy, So I've always been like, hey, look, if they can figure it out and they can get it insured and they can do everything they got to do, it's a great addition. So I think there's some trends. I think the word is experiential, and social, and I think that's the two buzzwords right now. And we're seeing some FECs that are opening with that. Some of them adding games, some of them not, but I think they're very interesting to go see and hang out at and check them out. But I would say that more than new games coming out. I think everybody's going to go to the shows and see what's hot and what's, we've got a few new ones that are coming from Raw Thrills that I have some inside baseball. I told you about T-Rex that was announced not too long ago. We had my favorite, the John Wick pinball, because I'm a John Wick fan. That just hit. So, there's a lot of titles out there that I was amazed at the last shows I've been to, how much product there is. I don't remember, and I've been going to, IAPA shows for 25 years, and I don't remember as much product ever coming to market as we have now. And I think that's fantastic. It's giving people a lot of choices to make, and it's making the arcades not look so generic. Because we all have the top 10 games. Everybody's got the top 10 games, and then
now there's so many choices they can't all be the same, right?
They don't look the same. They don't look so generic, and I like that. I think that's cool.
Sounds very exciting. All right, Dave, we have a signature question. So anybody who is a guest on Think Tank, there's either one of 2 signature questions they get asked. You've not been here before, so we're going to ask it about yourself. And so our signature Think Tank question is, what do you do on a consistent basis to grow yourself? Because at TrainerTainment, we're all about growth. And so we like to highlight that.
Yeah. That's a great question also, because I think, it's as long as I've been doing this, it's very easy to fall into, hey, this is the way we've always done it. This is the way it should be. I didn't talk about it in the design too much, but I should have, is the collaboration that we do with the architect, the owners. They're new. They don't know sometimes, but I don't know their vision. And I don't know what their vision is for what they're building. I have an idea, but I'm not in their shoes, money's not coming out of my pocket. So, I think collaborating, the ones I've collaborated with have been the best game rooms I've ever worked on. And, whether it was a game room in Australia or a game room, here in the States, wherever around the world I've done drawings for, collaboration is key. And we learn from that. And I have a gentleman that helps me with drawing. His name is Ian Williams, great guy. He's been doing it for about 8 years with us now. And he and I are hitting the road. We're going to see what trends are. We're going to see what these new games look like, backed up to each other. Make sure that we're recommending, just because, the CAD looks like they fit together. Do they fit together? Is it leaving the backs of games exposed or things like that? And we're trying really hard not to get into that. This is the way we always did it. This is the right way. This is the wrong way. We're trying to say, well, look, there's younger folks, there's newer folks coming to the industry. They're building their place. If they say, hey, I want Fast and Furious, a 12-foot screen game, right as you walk through the front door, I would normally say, no, you're going to block a lot of things on the way in, but maybe I need to rethink what I'm doing. You know what I mean? So we're trying to be very open-minded about that. And then the rest of it, to keep getting better, we do a lot of technology. I do a lot of after the sale wellness program that we have, Betson Wellness, where we get to evaluate the game room, see what we did right, what we did wrong, try and correct it. So yeah, that's kind of what we do to keep ourselves. And then Ian's in charge of our whole 3D program, which we're doing 3D in AutoCAD, in 3ds Max, which is AutoCAD, which we find that, yeah, it's interesting to take a Google SketchUp and make a 3D look of a game room, but it's almost cartoonish compared to what the architects are doing to the buildings. So we're able to take the architect's 3D drawings of the building and drop our 3D games in it and actually do a fly through and walk through and all that. So that's where our focus has been on. We got to build a lot of those models ourselves because factories, believe it or not, don't have them, some of them.
Yeah.
So we're doing that. We've been doing that for a couple of years now, and it's going well. And Ian heads up that for us, and he's a great guy. Great guy.
Awesome stuff. I have to say, I am probably one of the biggest advocates of the Betson Wellness program from somebody who does not actually work for Betson. Anybody that like says, I'm not sure about my game room, I'm like, did you get any of your games from Betson? If so, call them. They have this amazing program where they'll tell you if your game room is doing what it should be doing or what you can tweak to make it do better. So I think that's an awesome benefit that you guys offer your customers.
Yeah, and that came to me from Bob Gasheen when he hired me 10 years ago. We were all trying to figure out, because being TrainerTainment, that all of these seminars were coming up for relatively new people, right? Some new mixed with old. And all these groups are getting together. And one guy would say, hey, Wizard of Oz didn't work for me. Funny story. Andretti sent back their first Wizard of Oz. They sent it back. Didn't work for them. It was not earning for them. Okay. So imagine them going and telling 5, 6, 7 people, hey, that game's no good. You don't
people listen. Yeah.
They listened, right? So unfairly sometimes. So he said, how can we do this? And I said, we can create a program that we evaluate game by game. Okay, the overall's great, and people love to see the overall collections and what we do with that. But reality is trying to see, is that game set up correctly, paying out correctly, priced correctly, so that it has the potential to earn its maximum potential. So that's what the most important part of it was to try and evaluate games fairly, to say, okay, well, yeah, yours didn't work because you had it set up at the wrong price, or you didn't give enough shots for $1. So that's what it was born out of. And now, we've gotten with all the card reader companies and try and get a little bit more in depth with it. Yeah, it's great. It's a great program. And I was more involved with it, but now that all of our managers and sales reps can do it, they're kind of doing them on their own with their customers, which is fantastic.
Yeah, I think it's a great program. Well, Dave, thank you for your time. The last question you got to answer for me is, where can people connect if they want to learn more about you or Betson, or, get a look at their game room or any of those things?
For sure. Yeah, no, Betson.com is our go-to, and our website, we've spent a ton, James probably told you, we spent a ton of time and effort on that, and I'm very proud of it. You can find, if you don't want to search the world for all the games that are available, we have a section there that just tells you what's hot, and you can click that one button and just scroll through what's hot right now. So like the question you asked me, you could just one click, you're there. You can order parts there. You can get a hold of any of us there. Anybody at Betson is their first initial, last name at Betson.com. So you can get a hold of any of us there. I look at LinkedIn, but I don't do a lot of messaging through LinkedIn because I've got so many different messages, but certainly emails, dsexton@Betson.com, anybody that wants to get a hold of me.
Well, again, thank you for your time, and I hope to see you again on ThinkTank.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me again.
That was so much good information. I again want to thank Dave for spending time and sharing his expertise from many years of doing this with all of you today. I want to invite you to go, if you have not already, go check out the blog that he wrote for TrainerTainment, and it will have some even more in-depth information than what we could get onto here in this episode. I want to again thank my 2024 Think Tank sponsors. We love them so very much. And just want to say, if you have an idea for Think Tank, if you'd like to be a guest on Think Tank, or you'd like to sponsor a Think Tank episode, please contact me, Candy at TrainerTainment.net, and we can talk about whatever it is that you'd like. Be sure to check out where you can connect with TrainerTainment in real life. All of our upcoming events and appearances can be found on our website under trainertainment.net. You'll see an events tab menu there, and you can see wherever we're going to be. And most importantly, I want to thank you for tuning in to today's episode of TrainerTainment's Think Tank Thursday. Remember, the journey to success is all about growth, and here at TrainerTainment, we are committed to helping you and your company thrive. So visit trainertainment.net to learn more about how we can support your growth journey. And until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep striving for extraordinary. Bye.